Okay, so I'm gonna, some of you have heard this already. I'm gonna go present on all 5 campaigns and the work we're doing with Fairfax County. And so apologies to those of you who have already heard it, but I just want to invite you while I'm talking about each campaign, maybe contemplate what you might want to work on with that campaign or get somebody else at your faith community to do. And then we're going to hear from Johnny from a church in the city of Fairfax, which I'm excited to, he and I did an EV event a few years ago. So he's going to tell you all about the great work that his church is doing. And then we'll hear from Peter Bamwell from the EPA, and I'm excited about that. And then we'll have a discussion afterwards. We are slotted to go for an hour. I have found these sessions often go longer, so we're going to try to hang on with you as long as you have questions. And as you're listening to all of this, we're really trying to get solutions on the ground. So what we really want to hear from you is if you're interested, and that's all you need to say at this point. You don't need to be an expert or have an idea about exactly what you would do. But if you want to lean into this campaign with us, or any of the campaigns I'm going to talk about, we want to hear from you, and then we'll figure it out together. Okay, so now I'm going to share my screen and get going. In my whole screen here. Sorry, I got to navigate back to the presentation. All right. So can you all see that?
Yes.
Cool. All right. So I'm Andrea McJimsey. I'm the Executive Director of the Faith Alliance for Climate Solutions. I want to invite anybody who's just recently joined, please introduce yourself in the chat with your name, your faith community, where your faith community is located, and if you're interested in EVs, if you want to say anything about that. And then also, as we're going along, if you have questions, maybe Christine, you could keep an eye on that, but we'll have a Q&A discussion. And this is an informal meeting, so if you're really not understanding something and you want to ask, go right ahead. Okay, so we're working, we were asked by Fairfax County to help them implement their community-wide energy and climate action plan. And this year we've been working on a faith sector pilot to do that. And hopefully it will inspire lots of other sectors in the county to do this, because it's a community-wide plan with very lofty goals, 50% reduction in greenhouse gas emissions by 2030 and carbon neutral by 2050. And that means we all need to lean into this. And I think it's wonderful that faith communities are doing it. So first, I want to say thank you to our wonderful sponsors, Mom's Organic Market and Sandbox Financial Partners. I want to say we're a nonprofit. We're only able to do our mission because of the support we get from the community. And so we're really grateful. And if you happen to know any other businesses that might be good to partner with us, or have any other ideas how we can raise funds, because honestly, there's so much interest at this point that we've got to increase our capacity. So, and as you all know, we need to move as fast as possible on these solutions. Okay, so Fairfax County, first of all, the Community-Wide Energy and Climate Action Plan is the shortcut name for is CCAP. It's available on the county website, and you can read it, and it's big and with lots of different moving parts. And so what we did was think about it from a faith community perspective and put together 5 campaigns to kind of frame our work together. I want to just say that's the first 5. There might be other campaigns that we'll create in the future. And if you have any ideas about what else we should be doing, I'd love to hear from you. So I really encourage you to read that plan. Also, by the way, I'm sorry, for some reason, I don't have the Resilient Fairfax slide in here. We're also working with Fairfax County on their resilience plan, because we're already facing impacts of climate change like flooding and increasing heat and humidity. So be sure to read that one too. And the county's plan or program is called Climate Champions. And there's 2 sectors that are starting out: Faith Alliance for Climate Solutions, the faith sector, and then the hospitality industry is the other one that's kind of in this pilot phase. All right, and then the other exciting thing that's happening right now, Congress passed the Inflation Reduction Act, and so there's literally billions of dollars that are flowing into the economy to get these solutions going. And the federal government really needs partners on the ground, like FACTS, like all of you, to get the doors open, figure out what could be done, how the money could be well spent, and then get that money implemented. So that's, we're working right now on a Buildings Up grant. There's a Renew America. There's lots of different moving parts here. So it's very exciting. And so if we can land some of these grants, which I'm confident we can, it means, you can match your private funds with this federal funding and other funds that we're going after to get this stuff done. So very exciting. So these are the 5 campaigns. Today, we're going to be talking about clean cars. But we've also got Solar Sanctuaries, which is about solar and battery storage, Tree of Life, which is about the grounds of the faith communities, transit, that's pretty straightforward what that would be, and then Creation Care Kitchens, that's things like induction stoves. So I'm going to talk quickly through those. So again, Solar Sanctuaries, we're working with, this is the one where we've made the most progress, and we really have kind of it fine-tuned. We have a bunch of partners, solar installers, people who are experts on microgrids, and also energy efficiency companies. You want to start with energy efficiency because the lower your energy load, the less solar you need, and definitely the smaller battery, which is very important because those are expensive at this point. And the goal here is to get to the point of having a resilience hub where if the grid goes down, you can become a power island and become a place of refuge, especially for vulnerable people in the community, like the elderly or little babies. Okay, and this is, each of these, again, were framed towards a strategy in the Fairfax County plan. So that's what these blue boxes are. They're the strategies that this campaign addresses. Okay, Creation Care Kitchens. This is about the kitchens and kind of inside the buildings. So we're going to include HVAC systems in this and like going over to heat pumps, induction stoves, maybe eating lower on the food chain and food rescue, which many faith communities do already. And then my pet peeve is the styrofoam coffee cups at the end of the service in my church. And I'm hoping we can we put out the reusable coffee cups, but we still put out the styrofoam. So I'm hoping we can get to reusable. Okay, and this is about, again, doing things like reducing waste and electrifying building and energy efficiency. Okay, Tree of Life is about the grounds of a property. And so planting more native plants, getting rid of the invasives, doing community gardens, composting more, which is also connected to the kitchen campaign, and maybe reducing your lawn, amount of lawn, and reducing the amount of pesticides. Christine, who's on this Zoom, is heading up that campaign, and she would love to hear from you if you're interested. And I would say that's the one we're making the most progress on so far as well. Okay, and this is about green spaces in the county and also reducing our waste. Then the FACTS Transit Corps. The #1 source of greenhouse gas emissions in the country our transportation comes from our transportation system, especially single-use cars or single occupancy cars. So the more we can walk and bike and take transit, the better. And you've got to be able, if you're going to take transit, you've got to be able to safely get to the transit station. So this is what this campaign is going to be about. And we'd love to hear from you. This is my personal one that's close to my heart. By the way, it's also a huge equity issue because not everybody can afford to drive or can drive. And this is about reducing vehicle miles traveled and sustainable land use, et cetera. And then today we're going to talk about clean cars. So I'm really excited. Many of us have to drive. And so if we can transition to electric vehicles, solar powered would be really great. And then we can do EV ride and drive events to help introduce people to electric cars, that they're not that scary. And then even some visionary things like maybe we could do charging in a faith community parking lot for a nearby multi-story, multifamily dwelling apartment building. So we'll be talking a lot more about that today. And I want to say we've done all of the campaigns so far. So if you just Google Faith Alliance for Climate Solutions YouTube, you can find all of these sessions that we've done on each of the campaigns. And I want to just say the speakers have been truly excellent and we've gotten wonderful responses. So I think you'd find them very interesting. And again, watch them. And if you have any ideas, or even if it's just like, wow, this is really cool, we want to work on this, I don't know what we want to do, just let us know and we'll start working with you on it. Okay, and that's the simple strategy in CCAP. Okay, so again, today we're talking about clean cars, solar powered EV charging, EV ride and drive stations, maybe even electric bicycles. And we are going to hear now from Johnny from Daniels Run Peace Church. Welcome.
Hey, thanks, Andrea. Yep. So my name is Johnny, and I'm a member of the congregation at Daniels Run Peace Church, and we're located right there in downtown Fairfax, kind of across the street from the Safeway. So you can go on to the next slide, Andrea. So 6 years ago, the church embarked on a mission to reduce our carbon footprint. So we started looking at the viability of installing solar panels and then what the potential benefits would be. In 2018, the church installed a 30-panel, 10-kilowatt system, which is now sitting atop the building's roof. And to reduce the installation costs, we had volunteers from the congregation help install the panels. So the panels right now offset as much as about 95% of the building's electricity in the summer. And it generates, according to our dashboard, 13,000 kilowatt hours annually. And that's equivalent to about 11 tons of carbon emissions that's offset each year. Go on to the next slide. So a few years later, the church invested in installing EV chargers. And the goal was not only to provide an amenity to Fairfax City, but also as a means for the community to take advantage of these electrons that were just essentially being produced on a rooftop. So the church now has 2 J1772 chargers, which you see there in the picture, and it's available to the public for free. And the nice thing is, because we're in close proximity to downtown Fairfax, and there really aren't too many other reliable public chargers in the general vicinity, we've seen significant use since we've made them available. And we have people that kind of come into town, they go to dinner, they park, charge, go eat, and then come back, and they they take advantage of our solar generated energy. You can go to the next slide. And so this is what Andrea mentioned. So back in 2019, we had a wonderful event with Environment Virginia, where the church hosted an electric vehicle showcase. So we had a great turnout. And for 2019, I have to say we had a shockingly diverse number of EVs. I'm considering there weren't very many EVs out there. We had all different makes and models, not just Teslas, not just I don't know, Andrea, what do you have? You had the Ford C-Max. So it was impressive. And actually, I think that first picture in the first slide had just like this panoramic view of all the cars out there. All right, and the last slide. So yeah, I just want to end with a huge thanks to all of you who've attended. And then here's a picture of my 2 kids, Rylan and Lily. And I think this is an example of where kids are just looking up to us grown-ups, really to lead by example. And I know this group here is committed, but it'd be amazing if we could work together to kind of inspire our congregations all around to really further inspire our community.
Okay, well, thank you for sharing that, Johnny. And I'm going to stop sharing so that our next speaker can share. And then I am going to spotlight you, Peter. I can find you. Oops. So you can go ahead, Peter. Let's have I'm not sure we're hearing you.
No, we're not. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. All right. Okay. Thank you, Andrea. That was a great introduction. I'm going to run through the charging. At EPA Energy Star have a specification and program for EV chargers, in addition to 74 other product categories, but this is one that I work on directly and got connected to Andrea through someone else within EPA, Jerry Lawson. I don't know if you've run into him on the building side yet, but he's one of my colleagues. So what I'll do is I'll run through some of the considerations for site hosts as you look at this technology, as you look at electrifying, some lessons learned and considerations here. So starting out with the technology side, as you think about EV charging, there are really three different bins of charging to consider. So level one is basically an outlet, and the benefit there is it's very simple. It's not an EV charger per se. It's an electrical outlet that would be outdoors. People would be able to plug in with their mobile charger that comes with all cars. This could also serve bicycles. The benefits there are, you do fine with a plug-in hybrid. It would give you a few miles, roughly 5 miles per hour of charge. And there's some benefits to that, and it's something to consider. Level 2 charging is what Johnny was talking about, and those are the more heavy duty. They're 240 volt. They require the actual physical charger to be on the wall in most cases, and more expensive, heavier on the electrical side, but better service. Like if someone wants to, as he was mentioning, plug in and go to service and come out and have 50 miles of charge, this is what you would need. So as you look towards electrifying, there are real considerations about at what level are you going to go in. Now, DC fast charging is a whole different ballgame. Those are huge, expensive sort of industrial units, probably not something that you would consider hosting, but these are what are used on highways and giving you the very fastest charge. They're quite expensive, a lot of electricity, probably not the right choice for you, but these are the 3 levels that are out there. So a level 1 charger, it comes with the purchase of the EVs. And so basically, if you're a site host for level 1, you don't need to do anything on the charging side except put some waterproof outlets somewhere near your parking lot or your building, and you let people plug in. A level 2 charger, the charger could be chargers themselves on the order of $700, and then you would need installation and permits, etc. And that will vary widely in terms of what your building is like and what your parking lot is like and what the installation costs are. There'd be a big range, but this is a ballpark figure for chargers. And then the DC fast charge, quite expensive, but there's going to be a lot of variation in these choices. To start out with, if you're trying to figure out, and I know everybody in this group is, roll up your sleeves, DIY to the extent possible, a very active participatory group. So you can start doing some of this work yourself to see how viable it is. You can start out with a building survey. You go looking for the electrical panel.
Peter,
Yes.
sorry to interrupt, but just realizing that we're stuck on the first slide.
Oh,
Have you advanced it?
I have.
You know what you might want to do is unshare and share again. Sometimes just. And by the way, folks, if that ever happens, feel free to break right in if I don't see the chat and let us know.
Okay. What are you seeing now?
The first slide.
Charging 101.
Yeah, EV charging overview. why don't you unshare? Yeah. Often with technology, just plug and
Thank
unplug.
Thank you for speaking up. I would have gone the whole way.
Yeah. Yes, okay, now we see that one. Let's see, you wanna,
Okay,
are you clicking at all? Because we're only seeing that one again. Oh, Zoom.
yes.
There we go. Okay,
Okay, so that's charging 101. You see building survey now?
yep, I think it's working. Hooray.
Okay,
So I don't know if you want to go back at all, but
okay, so charging 101, you saw this one. And then there's a second charging 101 with the car plugged in. Do you see that?
yep,
Okay. All right. So cost estimates for charging 101. The basic overview, level 1 chargers come with the car, so there's no charge, no cost to the site host. You would just need the outlets. Level 2 chargers, 3,000 to 7,500 per, depends a lot. And then DC fast chargers, very expensive. You would need, some sort of large external funding source. Not impossible, working with the county or the state, but probably not what you're going to end up with on your place. All right, do you see building survey now? Andrew's on mute, but I saw
sorry,
him.
I'm mute, yes,
I saw him
yeah,
now say yes.
I'll stay off mute.
Okay,
Yes.
yeah. Is there a question?
No, they were just saying, yes, we can see it.
Okay, all right, so check your building's electric capacity. So talk to your electrician, talk to your maintenance guy, your building manager, go down in the basement and have a look and see what the electrical panel looks like. What you're looking for is numbers. So you see the 200 number on the right, that's a residential size, that's 200 amps. That tells you how much power your building is getting currently. And then below that, another residential size panel with the big switch at the top with the 200 for, a house of worship, probably starting at 400. You might have 2 400s or multiple. But what you're looking for is below it. You see all the black sort of breakers, and then the gaps. You're looking for gaps. So in a gap, you can put a new breaker, and that will give you capacity to charge electric cars. And talk with your electrician about the details here. But if you find that your panel is completely jammed full, then it's going to get more expensive to add power. You might consider doing level 1 at that point instead of a level 2. But these are the types of things that you look at. This drives the cost of the installation, and it's a sort of, how much can you do at your site without doing a big upgrade? So go check that out. In the residential side, and you can sort of scale this up for commercial, but putting a new panel in at the higher end for something like a house of worship would probably be on the order of at least $5,000 if you need a whole new panel going from 400 to 800, for example. The upgrades might not be needed, however, if you have a main panel breaker size of 400 or 800, and then there are a number of slots that are available. You don't need the upgrade. The electrical cost will be much, much lower. You want to decide what your goals are, and it's really important to do this up front, rather than installing chargers and then seeing how people react. You want to decide at the outset how many people have EVs now, what kind of service, do they want to charge at home? Do they need to charge when they visit your facility? And then, as Johnny mentioned, theirs is open to the others in the community, and that is something that you would need to build into your planning. You also need to look ahead. Electrification is happening fairly quickly with on the transportation sector, and you would need to think, you know, if what we do today, we build out the charging and we wire the parking lot, are you going to be out of capacity?
Okay, Peter, can you?
Yes.
There, you're back. You just froze a bit, so.
Okay. We'll just keep going. Okay, so parking lot survey and siting. You want to have a look, you're looking at this building above in the picture, and that would be a tough one. So ideally, you would have parking right next to the building, and you would have parking slots available. As Johnny showed, right, you know, his chargers are right on the side of the building. So that's a low cost installation. If you have a big parking lot, if you're spread out, if your parking lot is, you know, far away from the actual building, you're going to need to run wires under lawns, under sidewalks, and it gets much more expensive. So that's a big consideration up front. How possible is this? How much is it going to cost? And running wires under pavement and out to parking lots can get quite expensive. There's some resources here. There are 3 links. I can't go into all the detail now, but there's certainly a lot of technical resources out here in terms of how to get started. So those 3 links are there for you. There are, you know, from Johnny's picture, he had some signage, shows the basic spacing. This would be something that you would probably do with your county and your permit. There's some basic guidance out there in terms of the layout, the cord length, the access to the building, et cetera. So all of this is out there, and resources are available to, you know, give you some guidance and do as much of this on your own as you can. Okay, in terms of funding, it depends on where you are. If you're in Maryland, you're probably going to do better than if you're in Virginia, but check with your utility. Some co-ops have programs. It's really inconsistent. Utility programs generally tend to stop and start. They are, in some cases, not well publicized. There might be a program out there that nobody looks at, nobody's heard about. It's somewhere buried on a website. Some utilities do a great job. Some of them are not the leaders. So I would just say, just generally start on the website of your local utility and work your way up from there. Call the contact, get in touch with them, learn about the program details, the dates, the requirements. In some cases, there will be an annual sort of run at the beginning of the year. Funding can run out in, you know, 2 or 3 months, and then they'll be stopped, all the applications for the rest of the year. So those are the types of things you would want to find out about in advance. Get your project lined up, get it ready to submit on day 1, and hopefully you can get some utility funding. And then you could ideally have the utility come out, do an electrical site survey. In some cases, some utilities pay for the wiring. This is called make ready, and it's a rather than do the charging installs, they actually just get the site ready for electrification, and it's a great service. So check with your local utility. State DOTs, there is funding available for community charging through the Infrastructure Act, and it's going to trickle out to the communities through the state DOTs. There's $2.5 billion nationwide available. The first round went to highway DC fast charging. That was $5 billion. That's all been sort of set up. And the next round is in development.
Oops.
Hearing an echo. It may require that your charging is open to the public. But I would say, start with the state DOT and make some calls, work your way through whatever state you're in. And see what's available and when it's available, because there is federal funding for community charging. They are all working on plans right now, so it's a great time to jump in. So hardware considerations. For level 2, this isn't super complicated. Electricians are fairly comfortable with this technology now. And if you're to do the charging and it's in a parking lot, look for a sort of a pedestal type. You see the little graphic on the right with dual charging ports. You really don't want to have a single charger with a single port. It's much better to have dual charging ports. It basically cuts the cost per user in half. It allows people to, if they're both charging at the same time, they both get half the charge, or the single person gets the full charge, but it's a good way to stretch your dollars. You can decide on what you want to do about access and billing, depending on what your goals are. If you'd like to contribute charging to the users, that's a consideration. Just back of the envelope, level 2 charging for a couple hours will cost, about $2.50 on the electric bill for the facility. So you decide how much of that you want to give away, but it's also easy to set up billing on your chargers using accounts and software, et cetera. So you don't have to pay for it. Level 1, faster and cheaper. You really don't need to worry as much about the billing. A 2-hour charge would be on the order of 50 cents. And you can service more people that way. And you can also, as Andrea was mentioning, you can bicycles, it'd be perfect. Or a plug-in hybrid. If someone has a 15-mile battery in their plug-in hybrid and you give them 10 miles back for coming into a service, that's a reasonable thing. It's a big chunk. But again, you need to decide what you're comfortable with, what your goals are. If you want to, if you have one blob of cream cheese, do you want to put it on 5 bagels, or do you want to have one giant cream cheese lump on your single bagel? That's the level 1, level 2 decision you need to make. So different ways to go here, and some trade-offs. You can also have level 1 and level 2. You could have a level 2 charger, and then you could have 5 sockets next to it for people who want to charge and get a little bit of service. So Energy Star does have each charger specification. So if you're in the market, definitely look for Energy Star. The benefits are you're saving energy, and then there's a safety certification required that is a little bit frightening, because it turns out if you go to Amazon and buy a charger, you can get one that is not safety certified, and they are for sale every day of the week on Amazon and some other sites, but Amazon in particular is this is Peter Banwell talking, not the EPA. Amazon is a little bit reckless and sloppy with the products they sell. So we're making sure that you buy an Energy Star product means it's safety certified. The open communication standards are also a real benefit. And then there's a big program list and a wide choice of products. I see a hand up. Sorry, Randy.
Yeah, hi. Do you have a list of, if it says Energy Star, then that means that it is certified?
Yes.
And if it's brand name like ChargePoint, then that would be something that would be certified?
Yes. So Energy Star, we have, dozens of manufacturers listed, and they're all safety certified. And I think at the bottom of this page, there's a link to the list. So the other thing that you can do is educate your members about EV charging, cars, benefits, and we have resources on sort of how to do it at home, maps, etc. We have a good list of of the cars that are available for federal incentives. And that bounces around a lot. And so we have a direct link to the IRS website that demystifies what cars are available for the federal incentives. And we have a number of other resources there on our website for consumers talking about the benefits of electric cars and how to consider getting your house ready for charging. So resources available to your group in addition to the charging. So that is me, Peter Banwell, and then Kelly Schneider is available for some of the consumer outreach materials, product lists, etc. And so we'd be happy to help you out on your way to electrification. Thanks.
That was great, Peter. Thank you so much. All right, folks. So I'm going to unspotlight Peter. But we can start the discussion. Do you all have any questions?
Well, I have one that is pretty simple, but if someone pulls up to a level 2 charger, how do they pay for the electricity?
It depends on the charger. So if you have a sort of a basic, if you have a basic charger, and I think the ones that Johnny showed were sort of the they're not software based, they don't have a screen, there's not a big user interface, you plug it in and it goes. So that's one type. Those were Clipper Creek, weren't they, Johnny?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I think they got bought out by Enphase. So if you look them up, it's Enphase now.
Yeah. So there are chargers that require nothing. You just plug it in and you go. There are also chargers that have little screens where they'll ask you for your account name, and if it's a charge point, for example, then you would need to have an account with them. So that's good and bad. If someone pulls up and they're ready for a charge and they don't have a charge point account, that's a bother, that's a barrier. On the other hand, if you don't want to give away electricity, because that could have a financial drain on your accounts, then you have protection against people who are not paying.
Yeah, I have a question about that, Peter. So I've had an electric car since 2013, a plug-in hybrid, and I've pulled up to countless chargers where I'm not a member of whatever it is, and I just haven't charged, and it's really frustrating to me. And I read an article that I thought the Biden administration was working on trying to, I feel like we're in the early adopter phase where there's like all these different technology brand names, and we're eventually going to get to where you can charge everywhere, and it will be like gas stations, right? Like where you don't have to pick which gas station you're going to.
Right. Yes. So, do you have a Shell account? Do you have an Exxon account? Yeah, no, the industry is wandering a bit in terms of the charging, and I think the reason is no single entity is doing it. So for example, Interfaith is going to be doing some of it, so they'll install chargers on a number of sites, and then utilities will be doing it, and the state will be doing it, and the federal government is doing it. So it's all coming from different directions. I think they're going to be the first generation of chargers that are out there are to start, but as you said, it's really not convenient. And there is a new international standard for something called plug-in charge. Basically, you plug it in to the charger and the charger recognizes your car. And once your car is recognized, then the billing gets sorted out You don't have to put in account names and numbers, et cetera. So that's coming. The other thing that's happening is the federal government is requiring for the highway charging credit card, tap and pay access, and basically no accounts of any kind are needed for the federal funded projects. But yes, it is a little bit of a mess out there right now in terms of public access, public charging, chargers that don't work. But it's getting better. Hey, Randy, question.
Just kind of, I've had electric cars for a few years now. Around 2017, I got a hybrid plug-in Prius. What I found in going around out there, a lot of hospitals, for instance, will have Johns Hopkins. If you go to Bayview in Baltimore, they have a charger that's there and available. And it's kind of a pain, but there are different companies. There's EV Charge, there's ChargePoint, there are different companies, and you have to sign up individually for the companies. But you can do that when you're at the charger, and it's a pain in the butt. You have a new password that you need to remember, et cetera. But you can obtain charging, and it's reasonable, if not free, depending upon where you are. In Annapolis, I've come across BG&E has installed just kind of random, around at a curbside. There'll be a section, and their fee is pretty reasonable. It's 17 cents a kilowatt hour is what they charge, and it's a level 2. And that's just there and open to the public. The only problem there is people tend to park there when they're not plug-in,
Right.
which tends to block things up.
Yeah.
Yeah, and out in Boulder, I used to charge my car in my parking lot of where I worked, and you were only supposed to be there for 4 hours. And I would be 8 hours later, oh, I forgot to move my car. So yeah, there's a lot of complications with this, but that's one of the reasons why I think if faith communities could kind of dive into this and help us figure out, I feel like the larger society is still figuring this out, and we could be helpful partners in that, and maybe kind and loving partners in it. I like to think of faith communities that way. But I'm curious to the folks who are on, are you interested in exploring this for your faith community?
We have a sign up. When I started attending my church in 2018, and there was a sign there when I went there that said EV charging. One of those, the green sign that was on the thing, and I looked and I looked and I looked and I couldn't find it. And it turns out that the people down the road at the Friends Church just gave a sign to somebody at my church and said, if you put the sign up, then the charging station will follow. And it hasn't yet, but we're in a building renovation stage right now, and I'm really interested in being able to have that sort of thing available. The thing that concerns me is that there are not that many electric cars on the road right now, although more and more. And what's going to happen when 80% of the cars in the parking lot are electric cars? How are we going to provide service for 80 cars?
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's a good point. And I would say you don't need to, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're not the sole source charging for your faith community, and you should decide what level of service, what's your goal, right? Are you trying to provide for the community and provide a service? Andrea was talking about apartment buildings nearby, and that's a real problem. Apartment buildings you know, a lot of the owners can't have electric cars. They don't have charging anywhere. But if you're, if you have a driveway and you charge at home, then when you get into the faith service, you don't really need to charge. It would be nice, but you don't need it. So when there are 80 cars in your parking lot, you should just decide, you know, sort of what your mission is around charging. Is it to give everybody a little bit of charging, or do you have a community mission that you're trying to achieve? So you might decide whether you're trying to serve your members or members and the community, and then plan it that way.
There is
But I'm going to just interrupt and say, could we, any of the members of faith communities, are you thinking about it? And if not, maybe raise your hand.
If not, raise your hand.
Okay, interesting. And would the people who are members of faith communities, would you consider hosting an event where we show people electric cars? And by the way, let me describe that a little bit, how those are organized. There's EV clubs, and it's these people who love to show off their beautiful Teslas and things like that. And they literally just drive there, like Johnny, I want to say we had 20 of them at the show we did.
Yeah,
And they
easily.
open the doors and open the hood of the car, and they just explain they're passionate early adopters, and they love to share about their cars. This was pre-pandemic, so I don't know if we would have the same kind of energy post-pandemic. But you know, often they also care about climate change, and they want to help people consider the transition. And then we worked with dealers who are selling these cars, and so they brought cars to the church and actually did drives with people, test drives. So it was really cool. So that's the kind of event. A church is a perfect place to do it. We had speakers, and by the way, that was exciting. We had the at the time, the Republican candidate for chair of Fairfax County, who gave a wonderful talk on EVs, and it was really heartening to hear bipartisan support. So anyway, that's why churches or faith communities between your parking lot, places to speak, you know, you don't have to have electric vehicle charging already to do a good show. So would anybody consider that?
Well, we'd have to run that by someone else, I think.
Right. And all we're looking for is interest right now, because I know you have to go through all the committees and get all the approvals to actually move forward. So it's just like, if it's a twinkle in your eye, we're interested in knowing.
yes.
Yeah, I'd be willing to see if it would fly.
Okay. So I
Yeah.
got Ray,
sounds-
John, Sue, and Randy.
That sounds like fun, actually, to get dealerships to bring in the cars. I mean, I'm kind of an early adapter, and I have a plug-in hybrid now, and I have a full electric Ioniq 5, and it's fabulous. I mean, I've been wanting since 1971, when the OPEC got formed and we all got shafted. I've been wanting to get off of oil, and we can do it now with electric cars. And also, you know, I'd be interested in what's happening with fuel cells as well. But that's probably a whole other subject.
Yeah. Anybody else?
My guess is that the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Fairfax would be interested. Right now, it's a running joke that half of our parking lot is filled with Priuses.
Great.
And you're always welcome back at Daniel's Run Peace Church.
Okay. Yeah, it's been a few years, so that would be great. And Johnny, actually, I've never had a chance to ask you this. At the time we talked about, you were trying to get an article into the big Mennonite national magazine about this. Did that ever happen?
It didn't. No, maybe we need to try again.
Yeah, let's do another show and get that in.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I wanted to ask, do we still have Neely on here? I think she might have had to leave, but Fairfax County has a program called Charge Up Fairfax, and it's focused on HOAs. But I think we could probably get them to give us some help, considering we're the faith sector pilot. So, and I know they're hiring for a position to run that program. So that's another thing. Like I'm looking at Paul, perhaps like somebody who works on the advocacy side of things. We might want to check in with the county about that and see where they're at and what kind of resources. And then as far as funding goes, Peter talked about some of the federal funding that's available, but I know there's like all kinds of potential funding sources in this space, and I don't know them all. So that's another thing. We just need help, like a volunteer who might want to dig into that and help us. And then if we can find one faith community to really dive into this, and I'm going to say a Virginia faith community, just because it's a little different from Maryland. We could kind of model it for other faith communities. So even if just one of you really wants to lean into this with us, it'd be super helpful. And by the way, we haven't talked about electric bikes at all. Are folks familiar with what those are?
Love them.
Yeah.
They're amazing. I rented one in San Francisco one time. Thank God it was electric.
They've helped, especially I should live in Boulder, and I was going to get one because some of the hills are just too hard to bike up. But basically it's you can bicycle, right, normal, but you also have the little electric system that helps you go much farther and gets you up the hills easier.
I have an electric bike and I love it. I don't ride it as there's the cat. I don't ride it as much as I should, but it's fabulous. And you get to a hill and you notch up the amount of power assist and you feel like Superman going up the hill. They're great.
Yeah.
Oh, and do they charge? How do you charge it?
There's a little charger at home that you plug in. The brand I have has a detachable battery that you put into its battery charger. There are some brands of bikes where the battery is just a part of the frame, and so I guess you have a different way to plug the whole bike in. But with this, you take the battery out and put it in its charger, and it charges up in a couple hours, and that's probably enough for about 60 miles if you were using the battery a lot. But you can adjust the amount of power assist so you get as much of a workout as you feel like getting. So if you're it can be like riding a regular bike or much more power assist than that. It's heavier than a regular bike. I have a regular bike that weighs maybe, I don't know, 30 pounds, and this weighs about twice that. It's definitely a beast of a bike, but it's really fun to ride.
Mm. Well, and that's one thing, there's little nuances. I had a board member at a nonprofit I ran in Boulder, and she was a small woman and she had the beastly bike, and she had a hard time walking it because she had to kind of like get it into the bike rack. And I remember thinking, oh, this is something we all need to think about, like what's, making, because it's different from a regular bike. So your normal bike racks, you might want to think about putting in some different ones. But anyway, these are the kind of things I think as a faith community, we could kind of step forward and start thinking this stuff through. So even if it's, we're not charging everybody all the time, you know what I mean? But we have a couple chargers and we've helped think this through, and you're introducing the whole concept to your congregation, because we've got to move faster on these things. And, so like when your fellow parishioner is buying a new car, maybe if they've seen your your Tesla or your Ford C-Max Energy, maybe they'll consider looking at a different kind of model because it's not so foreign, you know? So anyway,
Andrea, because we're here talking about electric vehicles, I just put a link in a chat to a solar powered vehicle, which it's a two-seater. It's not for everybody, but it's pretty interesting if you're a nerd.
okay, and I'm going to say one more thing from the advocacy side of things. So back in 2010, I think it was, in Loudoun County, we used our energy efficiency and conservation block grants. We got $2.2 million, and we used part of it to put in solar powered charging stations in a rural park and ride lot. And back in the day, I mean, I had no idea how far ahead of the curve we were. But those are the kind of things too, we can work with our local jurisdictions to do stuff like that. And then the other thing, when you go to a place that has charging in the parking lot, I like to follow up with the developer. Like Lerner Enterprises has a lot of the land around Loudoun County, and I've told them how much I appreciate that they have those. So, you know, giving love to the ones. And then another thing they say to do is if you're at a car dealership and you don't see any of their electric car options, often they're parked in the back of the parking lot, you know, asking about that, like, why am I not seeing any of your electric cars? I think that's starting to change, but this is the kind of just like on the ground, you know, cultural stuff I think we could all work on together. So we're just launching this campaign. I don't know exactly where we're going to head. It sounds like the EV showcases are definitely an interest. And maybe if we can work with the county and start coming up with some funding opportunities, maybe some faith communities will step up to work with us on that. And then this is the last question I have for everybody. It really is a problem with these multi-story buildings and charging. And for instance, there's some safety considerations with having charging in underground parking lots and things like that. So I really think the faith community, if you've got a multi-story building anywhere nearby, that could be a potential, you know, vision of how we could help the larger community. I'm just curious, do any of your faith communities have multifamily buildings nearby? Yeah, my church doesn't. We're so spread out.
Well, St. Anne's has several apartment communities around, rental apartments in a 3-story, 2 and 3-story.
Yeah. And you're really not that far from the really big apartment buildings at Lake Anne, right?
True, yeah. There's a large senior housing facility. I know some of the people there have cars, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, well, that's helpful. We might want to think about that. And I know your church is such a leader. Their pastor worked to get transit in Reston, right? That's the story you told us.
I've forgotten that story. It may have been we have a new pastor now, so.
Yeah. Well, this was way back in the 60s.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yes. Oh,
Yeah.
yes. Well,
Yeah.
Yeah, we were instrumental in founding the Reston internal bus system as it then was. Now we're served by the Fairfax buses. So.
Yeah. Isn't that cool? Like a faith community was at the center of that. So we really can be movers and shakers. Okay. I feel like I've been talking a lot. Does anybody have any other thoughts or questions you want to cover?
I was wondering this, Randy. I was wondering if Mr. Banwell has more information on the funding sources. There's in Cheverly, Maryland, near where my daughter lives. They have at their community center, they have 3 charging stations set up. That people just pull their cars down there. I've loaned my daughter our plug-in hybrid, and she's able to just, you know, when she's driving that, plug it in. down in, down the street. But there was mention of something like site ready, where the utility will actually get things lined up so that it sounds in that case like everything is there and all you have to do is get an electrician or somebody who knows what they're doing to put in the station itself, but all the cabling and everything is placed. Did I hear that correctly? That utilities might be doing that? And how would I guess I could just call BG&E and ask them, maybe they could run the line from the building, because we've got a distance from our church building to the parking lot, and that would be expensive to run something, underground.
Yeah, so the debate in the industry is who should install the charging and who should own the charging. And there have been proposals over the years by utilities to say, okay, well, we're going to put our own charging around the county, and we're going to own it, and we're going to earn money on charging. And so people have objected to that, saying that's not your role. Other companies can come in and do a better job than the utilities. So a compromise is this work called Make Ready, where the utility will run the heavy wires to the site and tie it off, and then it's fully prepped for the charger. I don't know if that is probably not happening in Virginia. It might be happening in parts of Maryland. It is happening, statewide in Massachusetts and other areas, but it's an emerging policy that if it's not in place right now, it could be used to your advantage. But I don't have the specifics on each utility in Maryland. But that would be a good place to start. Figure out where you are and work your way up from there. But yes, the term of art is called Make Ready.
Okay. I've got in my complex, we've got a clubhouse, and it's every time I drive by that parking lot, I think to myself, boy, that'd be nice if there was, an EV charging station in the clubhouse area there for, and that might turn into a little bit of a moneymaker for the association,
There's,
Oops. Go ahead, Paul.
I was going to say, we're talking on this call about EVs, and the objective is to lower greenhouse gas emissions. And you mentioned, it matters what the grid is, but for the meantime, there's still going to be heavy vehicles and gas powered cars on the road. And I'm just posting a link in the chat. There's the EPA is considering standards for heavy duty vehicles, and comments are due by this Friday. I understand that they're working on solar powered EV trucks. Sorry, EV trucks, but I'm not sure how far that's gotten. This is
regarding the funding. I just put a link in on Pepco for businesses. It doesn't mention nonprofits, but small to medium-sized businesses, incentives from Pepco. So.
Okay. Yeah, so we also got a comment about the batteries, and there's no question that there's environmental impact from the batteries. And I know there's a lot of work on recycling batteries and things like that. But I just want to say the cleanest car is the car not driven. And so while we're working on the Clean Car campaign, we also really need to work on the FACTS Transit Core and making our communities more walkable and bikeable and transit friendly. So hopefully we can lean into both of those together because, yeah, clean cars, car not driven.
I just read an article. I was about the carbon footprint, and it was a little bit critical of the electric cars in that it takes they generate carbon in building the car, and you don't make up until you've been driving the electric car a couple of years, 3 years, before you've actually begin to really save carbon output because of the amount of carbon it takes to build the car to begin with. And I'd never considered that, never thought of that.
Well, my answer to that is there's also a big carbon, embodied carbon in a gas fire, in a fossil fuel fired car.
Sure, yeah.
And even with the grid being dirtier than we would like it to be, an EV is more efficient inherently than a gas powered car. So right from the get-go, you're doing better by, even if it's a coal powered, car, you're better off than with a internal combustion engine. And Peter, I don't know if you have anything more information on all
Yeah,
that.
no, we actually have a calculator on our website that lets you play with a new gas car versus a new EV and do a comparison at the zip code level. And it answers the question, are we saving CO2? So I can, well, it's on the page that I highlighted, but if you want to look at that specifically, I could send you the link.
Yeah, that would be great. And Peter, we do a follow-up email with links to resources. And we're also Margaret's working on a fact sheet for this campaign. So if there's anything you think would be particularly impactful for faith communities, and I think it's thinking of it in two ways. There's the faith community in the parking lots on the property, and then there's all the parishioners, right? So there's a kind of two levels of education we can do here. And then, of course, ministry and work with the wider community as well. So 3 levels, really.
Andrea, are you, what information do you have on the hydrogen fuel cell?
We're not working on that.
Not at all?
Yeah. So we're a small nonprofit and I'd love to do everything, but yeah, we're kind of, I would say right now, thinking more about electric vehicles and maybe electric bicycles. And then of course the transit, walking and biking. So, and if that becomes like a thing where it's, clear that we need to be considering adopting, obviously we'll look into that. But right now, that's
big in
not
California.
My name's Ray Martin. I live in Maple Creek at Green Spring. And I'm a retired Foreign Service officer and have been compiling a list of foreign service retirees who are at Green Spring. If you're interested, I can send it to you. It's not a very long list, not quite 20 actually. But then I've been changing emails with Sharon Muir, who I think you might have met. She said, you're new, we're in Peace Corps and we're interested in connecting with others. We're in Peace Corps, and so I'm a little curious. I know a couple people who were in Peace Corps, but not too many. And I'd be interested in touching base with you, finding out where you served and when you served. And if I find others, or I know a couple others who were in Peace Corps, I could connect you with them too. As I say, I'm in Maple Creek, G02, and my cell phone number is 703-556-0123.
All right. Well, we are definitely past the hour. Is there any final thoughts or questions while we have Peter? All right. Well, I want to thank you, Peter, so much for coming on with us. And we'll definitely be in touch as we figure out this campaign and, you know, what we might all do together. So many thanks for joining us.
Great. Nice to talk to you all. And, you know, I think it's a worthy mission is to electrify transport, and you can definitely help by, if you can't do any site hosting yourself, understandable, but you can definitely educate all of your members. And it sounds like Margaret is gonna spearhead some of that, and we'll be happy to pass on our consumer materials to them. So thank you very much. Nice to meet you all.
Yeah. And thanks to everyone for coming, and we'll see you next month.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.